So, hello everyone. Welcome to one of our great Unlock interviews. I want to introduce to you Matthew Van Niekerk. He's the co-founder and CEO of SettleMint. SettleMint was one of the first companies to ever get into the blockchain space. And we're going to learn more about why they're doing so well, not only globally, but in the region. Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Laura. How are you doing? Great
Good,
to
good.
be here
Great to
today.
have you.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Happy
You're
to be here.
so welcome. So, Matthew, one of the basic elements of SettleMint and one of the basic features of SettleMint is the low-code blockchain concept. So, can you explain to me what that means and how is it so beneficial to the growth of the blockchain ecosystem?
Yeah, sure. So indeed, maybe to answer that, I'd like to give a bit of a history lesson on my experience in the blockchain space and why did I think that having a low-code solution would be beneficial. So I've been in the blockchain space since 2014 or so. Initially as a banker, I was head of the Blockchain Center of Excellence, or a founding member of the Blockchain Center of Excellence at a bank in Belgium. And we did a lot of my particular area of focus was capital markets, so post-trade clearing and settlement type use cases. And we had all kinds of ideas in the Center of Excellence about what we could do with blockchain tech and how we could utilize it. And there's no shortage of ideas, but what we lacked was developers in-house that were capable of building blockchain applications. So, I had my list of, the top 15 use cases that I wanted to do experiments with and see if we could put it in production. And I turned to we had around 2,000 developers in the bank. And I asked, okay, well, who would like to work on the blockchain initiatives that we have planned? And the first question that developers asked from the bank was, block what? So it especially, it's more prevalent now, but in 2014, 2015, there were very few developers that had any inkling or experience with blockchain technology. And those that did were working on open source projects. They certainly weren't working in banks or in companies or enterprise, I should say. And that was a big challenge. That was a big obstacle. So, we made the decision at the bank to outsource some of that work, and in parallel to build up a developer team that would be capable of doing blockchain experimentation. Now, making that decision on the one hand, which is a common reaction, if I can't get it done internally, I'll outsource it. And that meant that we built a kind of a dependency on a external provider that led to a long-term dependency on them. And while in parallel we were working on building a team of developers internally that were capable with blockchain technology. Now, 18 to 24 months into that journey, you've got 4 or 5 developers that are quite competent. And the thing at that point in time, and it's still continuing today, is that making that investment is 9 times out of 10 lost, because by creating that SWAT team of blockchain experts in the bank, you've actually just created the most sought after developers in the market. And they tend to leave either to start their own company or to take an offer from another company that's going to pay quite a bit more. So those are kind of the pitfalls that taking either outsourcing or trying to build an internal competence center. There's a lot of downsides, and it's not a sustainable long-term solution. So what I realized in that whole experience is that the ultimate thing to do would be to make every developer capable with blockchain technology. And how do you do that? Well, if I look at other companies that have that approach, companies like OutSystems or Mendix that have low-code application development platforms, or if I go even to another level in companies like WordPress and what they do for websites, or Stripe and what they do for payments, WordPress and Stripe, they do something really, really, really powerful, which is make it easy for developers to build an application or to build a website in the case of WordPress. And with Stripe, to make a website into a web shop, they make that process easy. So they remove all of these mundane overhead tasks for building websites in the case of WordPress. and for making payments capable through a website with Stripe. And so what we're doing at SettleMint is in fact creating, what WordPress does for websites and what Stripe does for payments. We do with for the blockchain technology. So it's the concept of going to a low-code solution is really driven by the need to make blockchain technology accessible to a wider set of developers, so that real adoption of the technology can take place. And if you look in a European context where we have our headquarters, there's it's only about 1.2% of developers that are competent with blockchain technology, and 1.2% is a very small number. And it's holding back the development and proliferation of blockchain technologies. Mm-hmm. So by offering a set of developer tools that makes it easy to build a blockchain application, to integrate that application into an existing infrastructure and architecture, what SettleMint provides is the ability to rapidly build and integrate and deploy and run in production blockchain applications.
That's kind of like you're democratizing blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, we're big believers in and have been from the very beginning in the benefits that blockchain technology will bring to business, that the benefits that blockchain technology will bring to society, and when you really believe in those benefits, there's almost a moral obligation to make it easier for everyone else to use. And that's what drives us at SettleMint. We really want to, as you said, democratize access to blockchain technology. And we do that with a low-code platform to abstract away the complexity of the technology and make it easy for everyone.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Matthew. You've done so well at SettleMint. You started early on. You have lots of solutions on offer for the banking sector, supply chain, and so forth. And recently, you've been working with the World Economic Forum. You announced blockchain digital identity, self-sovereign, actually, IdentiMint. Can you explain more about that and why it's important today?
Yeah. And when we talk about any application, be that in a supply chain or be that in a banking context or be that in a government context, ultimately we talk about connecting people and people. Distinct units, whether that's a person, an object, or a device, or a company. All of these things have an identity. So if we want to be able to, therefore identity and having a solution for identity that puts the control of that identity at the endpoint, be that the person, the company, or the device, it's really a foundational requirement to have a solution like that in place to unlock all of the other use cases. So I look at self-sovereign identity as the, let's say, kind of a key to unlocking a lot of different use cases. And essentially 90% of use cases, you have to identify either a person, a company, or a device or object in order to make the use case work. So identity is foundational to making most applications work. And Laura, are you there?
I was on mute. I was just saying that it also helps to proliferate blockchain applications and blockchain implementation when everyone can log in with their own self-sovereign identity, whether it's a person or a thing, and it's a big step towards making it everywhere, right? And I think that's why you're working with the World Economic Forum as well on this.
That's right. Yeah, and that's so we built with our core tech, we built a framework that follows the W3C standards for verifiable credentials and decentralized IDs. And that framework is very much applicable. It works with different underlying blockchain technologies. But being able to leverage that and leverage, to work together with the World Economic Forum to provide frameworks that others can use is really I think it's a strong partnership for us to form, of course. So with our IdentiMint product, that's what we want to provide is a fully interoperable solution that works across different underlying blockchain technologies. And the wallet itself is what is giving the power to the endpoint, the person, or the company, or the device to govern itself. And that's, in a decentralized world, you want to push that control as far out to the edge as possible. And that's what this self-sovereign identity solution will provide for.
It's interesting as well that you're working with WEF on data for common good. Would you want to just quickly go over what that is?
Yeah, so one of the World Economic Forum is doing a lot of great work in the area of blockchain and digital assets, and different ways that blockchain technology can be used for a wide range of use cases. So they've identified around 20 different initiatives that they're spearheading globally. And one of those initiatives is called the Data for Common Purpose Initiative. And that is led by Nadia at the World Economic Forum. And she's the initiative is set up to support in defining, there's different parts to it. So there's policy around data management, there's regulations around data management. And of course, from SettleMint side, we have a product called Data Broker, and Data Broker is a peer-to-peer data exchange. So that kind of completes let's say having the policy in place, having the regulation in place, and having a technical solution in place. Those are the three components required to have success of an initiative like the Data for Common Purpose. And so they're moving ahead with or will be this year with a number of pilots in different countries. There's around 4 countries that have that are now pushing ahead with first POCs and pilots, and we're supporting Data for Common Purpose initiative from a technical perspective. So there's a lot of the parties involved in it are focused on policy and regulation, and things like defining models for the value of data. So it's one of the common questions in data marketplace context. It's hard to establish a value for data when you want to sell data. But the World Economic Forum has a working group within this initiative that's focused on creating pricing models for data. But once all of those, the policy, the regulation, the pricing approach is defined, then you need a technical solution, and that's where Data Broker is an example of a marketplace that can be utilized in the context of Data for Common Purpose initiative.
Excellent, Matthew. After hearing all of this, I always like to ask you, because I know 2020 was, not the best of years for implementations in blockchain, but 2021 is looking brighter. From your perspective, you're in the blockchain scene every day, you're seeing what's going on. How do you see blockchain in 2021 globally? And how do you see it, for our listeners here for the region, GCC and MENA, how do you see it growing in the region?
Yeah, and I'll start maybe macro, and then come global, then come to GCC. But what we see at a global level, there's a good study from Gartner. They survey every year between 400 and 600 companies that are working on blockchain stuff. And what they found in 2019 was only about 5% of R&D activities and proof of concepts were going into production. So 5% are going into production. On the flip side of that means that 95% are stopping at a POC. So in 2019, very few initiatives were going live. For the same study in 2020, found that around 14% of implementations in 2020, 14% led to a production implementation in 2020. So it's almost a 3x increase in the number of initiatives that go from POC to production. And the signs we're seeing in the market for 2021 are certainly that's going to continue. So we're expecting that between 22, 23, maybe 25% of initiatives that are in POC or have been in POC will go into production in 2021. So a major trend, I would say, is that the exit from the lab and into production where real business value is being generated. That trend that's been spotted by Gartner, 2019 at 5%, 2020 at 14%, and in 2021 we expect to be up, and optimistically at 25%. This is a major trend. Getting out of the lab and into production is a major one. A second major trend that we're seeing is, as the world is emerging slowly emerging from the pandemic, there's a new focus on ESGs and environmental, social, and governance, sustainability and governance objectives that companies are setting. And we had a beverage retailer that went live in production in January of this year in Europe. And what was really driving their initiative and their use of blockchain technology was to be able to decrease the ecological footprint of their supply chain. So major, and we're seeing now a consortium of banks that we're talking to is looking at how can we provide working capital solutions for SMEs. That's not new. That's been around for ages. But how can we add in scoring, the scoring metrics that'll be taken into account in the credit underwriting process that will give preference to companies and SMEs that have strong environmental sustainability and governance metrics as well. So we're seeing a major trend in 2021 linked to ESGs. And if I one last trend, and I think that when I'm mentioning these, Laura, I think that they're common. I'm mentioning them as global ones, but I see the same signs in the Middle East with respect and to the GCC with respect to ESGs and the prominence and that's really driving business, and blockchain as well really supports the ESG drive, simply because if I want to if my ESGs are important, I want to be able to prove that to consumers and to society at large that my sourcing is done sustainably. I need to provide evidence of that. And of course, if we can utilize blockchain technology to store the certificates of sustainability, whether that's carbon reduction or that's let's say agricultural footprint reduction in a process for the food sector, being able to provide the irrefutable evidence via blockchain that our objectives are being met gives us a major advantage in the market from a competitive perspective. So the ESG trend is a big one, and I see that across also in GCC as an important driver. I won't get into another trend, which is NFTs, but there's a lot of use case, a lot of hype, I would say, in the NFT space, and that's a third, let's say, big trend coming through in 2021. Specific to GCC, what I'm seeing that I see often on Block, almost I get the daily updates, and it seems like the pace of announcements is increasing. So I take that as a sign that what's happening in the Middle East is moving from POC to production is also happening. And other use cases that we see, supply chain and tracking and asset tokenization, these are big trends that are also very much, I follow all the time the Unlock news feeds. So I see a lot happening in the region in the same areas that we see in other parts of the world.
Thank you, Matthew. That's very nice to hear. I'm glad that you're following us regularly. We try to keep up to date about what's going on, not only here, but outside. So yes, you're absolutely right. NFTs, it's now the new thing in art, and you'll be hearing something more in diamonds and gold. And so things are picking up. I think what's helping is the regulations. The more the MCC are coming out, the IFC are coming out with something. So regulations plus the ideas are all building together. And I know that you are always, supportive and you want to be present on the ground in the region. and I know that you're hiring more people in the UAE. So what does that mean for you? I mean, I know that there are also things that are coming up which you might not be able to talk about, but in general, where I mean, how much is the UAE growing for you? How much is the region and the hiring, etc.?
Yeah, so we have as you mentioned earlier on in the interview, 2020 was a tough year, and I think that was common across any sector that's focused on innovative technologies. It was, but what we see, and the GCC obviously hit from a couple of different angles with oil prices and the pandemic. So it compounded and it slowed. We had planned to expand pretty aggressively in 2020. Early in 2020, though. The world changed literally, so we had to put our growth plans on hold a bit. But this year we're back at it. So as you said, we're growing the team now. We've identified our first new hire. He'll be starting in May. So that'll grow the team by one. By the end of the year, we plan to be at around 4 people out of Dubai for the GCC region. And so we're confident that the market and the interest in blockchain technologies, although it slowed a little bit in 2020, we believe it's coming back in 2021, and we want to be there locally present. And as we have been since early 2018, we want to take the opportunity now to double down our resources in the region and make sure that we are able to follow as the, let's say, the adoption of the technology accelerates. We want to make sure that we're there to support it.
Matthew, I want to thank you so much. It's always great to speak to you. Yes, excuse me.
Sorry, Lara. So my apologies. I left one part out. I talked, of course, about growing our presence directly with new hires. The second thing, and you'll hear in the coming weeks and months, a couple of interesting partnerships that we're setting up as well at SettleMint to help grow our network in the region, to be more present with our partners. And there'll be you'll be first to get it when the press release is out.
We want to scoop, Matthew. Yeah.
You'll have it.
I'm always happy to see companies, come to the region and help to develop the ecosystem here, because I think we have, there's a lot that can be done. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you once again, and I'm sure everybody enjoyed listening to this. Take care.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you. Take care. Stay safe and stay healthy.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.